Today I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Choose life, so that you and your descendants may live, loving, obeying, holding fast to God. Choices and laws and how to live echo through both of today's readings, because choices have repercussions, and those repercussions are expressed in us and in our world. Let me ask you, as you look across our world today, who would you say has the greatest chance to choose what they want, when and how they want it, to do what they want when they want? My take is it is those with most privilege of power, of wealth, of status and or of influence, or the capacity to influence. This is nothing new. Sadly, none of us are particularly surprised by this, because it's like we know this is the way the world goes round, right? Like, what can we do about it? But in the context of this passage from Deuteronomy, I want to suggest that that type of choosing is thin choosing. Not to cast aspersions upon those with wealth who may indeed live generously toward others. But what this passage tells us is not only that we have the power to choose, but that our choices have impact and we are vulnerable to them. I think we like the first part of that, about the power to choose, and I think we've come to ignore or overlook or become numb and distance ourselves from the consequences of our choices, because living that way is far easier. Thin choosing, I suggest, gives us power, control, power over, and minimal experience of our impact. This Deuteronomic type of choosing makes us present now, aware of and connected to the impact of our choices. So this idea of a law and how it's lived out, we hear reflected in Matthew's Gospel. And I want to acknowledge, particularly from some of the pastoral conversations I've had over many years, that this passage can be hard to hear for many people. Listening with the experience of our lives and perhaps the judgments laid on us or our loved ones from the misuse of the passage, it is no surprise. Again, I would want to suggest this is a repercussion of a choice made that has a lot to do with power over, and a choice to disassociate from the messy vulnerability of real life that defies all that tidy ordering we would prefer. But if you're willing to give it a go, let's have a bit of a poke around at the gospel, the slightly wider lens. Matthew, whose gospel we are exploring this year, structures his gospel in such a way to suggest he intends to portray Jesus as the new Moses, giving a new law for the new covenant. Tempting as it may be for us to go, yes, we can do away with all that old stuff and create our new law, Matthew does not have Jesus do that. Last week we heard quite clearly Matthew put in Jesus' voice, he's not come to abolish the law. Not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law before it is fulfilled, literally perfected or completed. And today's passage demonstrates what that might look like. It's as if Jesus knew that the law could be a cold-hearted beast. He knew it could be used to demean and to oppress. He knew that a law left in the realm of letters and courtrooms could often accomplish the exact opposite of its intent. We all know it is possible to abide by the letter of the law and still wreak havoc on the lives of others. We can do business in ways that are completely legal, but leave our workers destitute and unhealthy and ravage our environment. It is possible to lead nations and organizations in ways that are legally sanctioned, but serve only ourselves and leave others broken. It is easy to apply the law as a weapon, to learn to use it with lethal accuracy, and to manipulate the world to our own agendas with it. This applies equally to religious law as to secular law. But when we do this, the law is made incomplete, broken, a shadow of the social glue it was created for. A Methodist minister, John Vanderleer, suggests that in this passage we heard today, Jesus moves the law from the realm of the letter to the realm of the heart. Jesus' words in Matthew resonate with those of the prophet Jeremiah, who said, "But this is the new covenant I will make with the people of Israel on that day. I will put my law within them, and I will write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people." The law is made complete when it is written in our hearts. It gives us life and brings people together when carved into the very core of our being. So today, Jesus speaks that radical message of the law made complete, calling us not just to ensure that we uphold the letter of the legal code, but that we uphold the dignity and the humanity of our companions in this world. We cannot just avoid physically killing. We must also avoid destroying the dignity and reputation of one another. If we seek life and wholeness, we'll refuse to degrade another with our angry words, be they insults or gossip or manipulative backstabbing. Rather, we will do everything we can to recognize the humanity of the other, and if at all possible, seek to be reconciled. We cannot just avoid the betrayal of adultery. We must also avoid the betrayal of another person's humanity by objectifying them and making them nothing more than an object of our own pleasure and satisfaction. We must avoid the betrayal of treating another like property, as women were viewed that way in marriage in days gone by. Avoid treating people like property to be discarded when we're finished with them. When we deny others the fullness of life, or our creation itself, the fullness of life, ironically, we are denying this to ourselves as well. So this complete law calls us also to ensure that we upheld our own dignity and humanity. There's no evidence that any of the disciples cut off limbs or cast out eyes, so it may not necessarily have been literal. But rather than allow our reputations and self-worth to be undermined by manipulative vowing, promise-making, and persuasion, we are to uphold our own dignity and humanity by being people of integrity who stand by our word. We each participate in ways of living and being that do not fulfill the heart of the law portrayed in this way, whether we do so knowingly or unknowingly. We are constructed socially to do it this way, to be this way. We don't necessarily know how to do things differently, even if we want to. And I'm not convinced it's even possible for us, off our own bat, to self-determine a complete overhaul. Because I think whatever we would generate, even with the best will in the world, will be done from our existing habits and patterns, and we would just express ourselves in another guise. So how, between these two passages, might we understand the heart of the law today in a way that means we can actually do something? For our world and our lives are in sore need of life-bringing transformation. Well, I want to suggest we only have each moment in which to choose. And in a busy life, it's challenging to notice even one moment, much less pay attention. But I think this is the place that we can begin. In one of those noticed moments, we can pause and ask ourselves honestly, does our choice dominate, or diminish, or demean, or deny, or destroy life, or destroy the other? Can we see it as possible to choose differently? Can we acknowledge this, even if we don't know what to do? That we can see the negative impact of our habits of being and doing, and we want to do otherwise. If, just in a moment, we can, with honesty and humility and vulnerability and hope, hold that, be aware of it, pay attention to it, and desire differently, the faith lineage in which we walk says that we can learn to choose in a way that leads to life and leads to flourishing. As we pay attention, as together we notice, as together we learn how to choose differently. We know that the symbol of the justice of the law that the law brings is blindfolded, that statue with the scales and the blindfolded. This blind justice is intended to be unaware of status, fame, or economic resources, ensuring that all people are equal under the law. But the blindness often extends to the humanity of those who are judged by the law. This kind of law can end up as cold-hearted legalism. It may preserve a kind of truce among people, but it can never lead society or the individuals in it to creative, connected wholeness. The new law Matthew has Jesus bring about isn't blind. Rather, it sees with incredible clarity right through to the dignity and the humanity of all people. It invites us all to release our obsession with letters and allow our hearts to be inscribed, allow our hearts to be the place where the law does its work. If we follow this way of living by heart, we may discover that the law, in its complete heart-capturing form, leads us to life and teaches us to be life bringers with everyone that we encounter.